There we go. So this is what we have edited in the tool that we are going to be building. Maybe I've said hello, hello world, this is an amazing day. Then I can actually add some few things like the bold. I can remove the bold, I can add the bold. I can add some styles into that text. I can add some few things. I can also make it italics. I can add a table. I can do whatever I want with that this amazing tool. I can do that. I can actually do that. Now you see this document. There is no button called like something like save. I have no button like save document or do something. The same way in your Google Docs, you'll come here, write a document, then you won't see any button like save. This one means it has been automatically saved to the database. Once we refresh this page, see this page, then this document still exists. The same way this here. Now come here into our document. Let's refresh. Then you see this document here. Today is an amazing day. It has been already saved in our database. So the moment that you are writing this document, then it is sending that data real time to the database. And that's what we want to achieve today. How can you use this project on your own? Maybe you can twist it to fit your idea. Okay, that's one thing that we are going to be building. And actually, you can go back to documents. Actually, we can create a new document and say we can call it a new day. Then I will click new. Then it will redirect me directly to this page. And as you can see here, the title of that particular document I created. Then from that, I'm going to say hello world and say I love this. Then that has been automatically saved to the database. Then I just go back to my document, and then that one, you see this new date, it has been added here. Actually, it has added the timestamp and everything. And now I can view this and then continue with other parts of that program. That's what we want to achieve today. And what tools are we going to use? We are going to use Node.js. We are going to get introduction into Node.js. We are going to use MongoDB. We are going also to use HTML and CSS, and actually not just writing the normal CSS, but we are going to introduce to another CSS that we call it Tailwind CSS. Maybe some of you have come across these projects or have come across these technologies. So basically, that's what we are going to do. But before we even start writing our code, I want us to do the setup. So the setup includes MongoDB. The setup includes other things. So we are going to go to MongoDB. We are going to go to MongoDB, that is Mongo database. Then from the MongoDB, we are going to do something. Okay, anyone with any question?
How about getting your...
You can go on.
In 30 seconds. How about quick quotes?
Which document, please? Samuel Moy. Which document are you talking about? Oh, how can you share that document? Actually, that's another feature that we are going to create. This is not a complete version. So what we are going to do, we are going to do it in versions. For example, we are going to do this, and actually we are going to say document versions. You see these versions here. Once you click this document, for example, let's edit. Then you click this button here. I think this one is not working, but let me see. Yeah, you see these document versions. One document was edited at 10:20 a.m. Then this document was also edited at 10:24 a.m. That's another feature that we are going to be working on. We are going to see if this document that we are creating, for example, I say this is a new version. This is a new version that we are going to create. Then we are going to see if that has stored all those document versions. So first, we're also going to create the share button for this project. This is just a demo of something quick that we are going to work on. So let's go to MongoDB. Then I'm just going to sign in because I already have an account. So I'm just going to log in. It will take some time to log in, so you're going to bear with me. The session is being recorded. In case you want the recording, we are going to share it with you. So this is how my MongoDB database looks like. We are going to explore this MongoDB and we are going to see some of the things that we can grab from this MongoDB database. For example, I'm going to view some of my projects and I'm going to select maybe the collab. You see this document, then I'm going to show you what this database has. For example, here I'm going to browse my collections and see if I have any collections in that database that I created. Then let's wait and see. Perfect. Then you can see these documents. You see these documents over here. In my database, you can see these documents. So I want us to look for a certain document, a certain specific document from us here. Then we see some of the things that we are storing in our database before we maybe we create one of these documents. For example, let me take the last document that was new day, the new day. So I'm going to look for my database where I have my new day. It should be among the last in case it's storing it in yeah, you see this new day. Let me just zoom. This document here, you see this document, it has a document ID. And this document ID is actually this document ID. You see this ID, see this ID over here is this specific document ID. Is this specific document ID. Then this is the title. Then it's stored in this paragraph and the rest of the things. Then you see these collaborators here. Let's say I was working with another person just joined this document and then they edited this document, but they have to log in first so that they can edit this document. Then it's going to store a list of collaborators, of people who have worked on this document. Then another something that is going to store is going to store the time when this document was last created. It was created at this time in this format. We are going to see how we format our time. Then this document was last updated at this particular time. Then we have the cool feature here, that is the document version history. So this document means we have edited it 50 times. You see this document? We have edited it 50 times. But I know you can't know why we are saying that we have edited it 50 times, because you can see the number of times that we have edited. We have only edited some few things. For example, this is how it's recording the 50 times. My cursor is over there. Then I press enter. You see that enter? That is a version of that document. That's a change that I've made to that document. That means it's going to, it should be storing the 51 version over here. So maybe we can edit and say RT. For example, that's a change that we have made. Then it should be able, once we refresh this, we should be able to see this as edited 52 or 51 times once we refresh this database. And those are some of the things that we need to achieve when we are doing this. So that means with this project, you can create other projects just directly from this one project. So, anyone with any question before we continue to the next part, that is creating our first database? Anyone with any question? Okay, so we can just go to MongoDB and then create our database. So what we are going to do, we are going to create a new project, and this is how you create. This is how you create a new project. Once you log in into MongoDB, click here. You are going to see maybe an empty project or a new project, depends with what you have. Then you can create new project. Click on the new project. Then wait for this project to start. So we are going to add several things. That is the project name, and this project name, for example, we are going to call it any of this project. But before we go to that, let me just check under which project I'm in. So I think this is safe. I can just create. I can just create a new project, and I think this one should be working perfectly. So I'm going to add my project name, and then I'm going to call this project Y. Then this is my project. Then you are going to choose the name of this project that you want to create. Then actually you are going to click on next. Then after you click on next, then make sure that this email is the owner. That is the email that you have logged in into MongoDB with. Then click on create a project or create this project, and then we wait for it to do its magic and create all the necessary parts for us. Now, now you can see we have our project Y here in the list of projects that we have in our MongoDB. So the next thing that we want to create is this cluster here. So, but before we go to creating a cluster, I would like us to maybe do some of the setup of the code, because maybe at some point we are going to store some of these things that we are going to get actually while we are creating our cluster. We are going to need some of these things, or some of these keys in our code. So I'm going to go back to the coding part. Then I'm going to just prepare so that I can maybe store the environmental variables in our .env files, or still anywhere in our code. So to do that, I'm going to open my terminal. Then once I open my terminal, I'm going to install several things here. The first thing that I'm going to install is actually Node.js. I'm going to tell this application is using Node. I'm going to install other things like a course, like Express, like the Mongoose, the passport for us once we go to the authentication, the socket here to communicate with our application and everything. So I'm going to install a list of dependencies here. And to install this list of dependencies, we are going for this time, we are going to use npm. So we run npm, then install a list of dependencies over here. Npm install a list of dependencies. Then these dependencies, we are going to use it progressively in our application. So the first thing that I need to do, before that, I can install. But before I install these dependencies, I also need to start my Node application. So anyone with an idea how we start our Node applications or our Node.js applications, how we start our new projects? Anyone with any idea on how we go about it? How we start? You can still type on the chat how we start our Node applications. That is starting. How do we initialize the Node application? How do we initialize that project? Thank you. You can either use npx init or you can still use npm init. So for now, before you go to npx, so let's use the npm init to initialize our Node.js project. So we are going to type npm init, then we are going to enter, then we are going to do some things over here. So I can just leave everything as default. I can leave my project to be version 1. I can either decide to add the description or I can either decide to leave it blank. But let's say, let's call it Google Docs clone. Let's call it Google Docs clone. Then I'm going to leave my first file to be the index.js, my entry point. Then I'm also going to leave that, leave the Git repository, other, then the license, and then I'm going to press OK for my project to start. So basically that's it for starting this Node.js application. And as you can see, we have now our package.json file that has been created for us. But now, but now I want us now to install this list of dependencies that we may need to use them later in our application. So now is where we are going to run the npm. Let's use npm install a list of our dependencies. So the first one thing that I'm going to install is the Express framework. Then I'm also going to install something that is very necessary in our application, that is the Mongoose that we are going to use. Then another thing that we are going to use still in our application is the socket.io. These are all packages that we are going to use, and then we are going to see them why we use all these packages. That is a socket.io. I'm going to install it, and I'm also going to install something that is very very necessary, that is a .env. That is .environmental variables. All those things we are going to install. Then something that is very very also important, we are going to install something we call it bcrypt. We are also going to install that bcrypt, and also we are going to install another thing that is also a bcrypt JS. We are also going to install. We are going to see why we are installing all those different dependencies. Then we can also install something that we later need. For now, we later need that. We need also, of course, we also need maybe we can install the last thing, that is the passport. We call it passport, and also we install the passport logo to use it locally in our machine. So basically that's all what we need to install. But later in our application we are going to create the authentication. So I can install JSON web token. I can install JSON web token in my application. So basically that's what we need for a start. So I'm going to press enter. Then it's going to install all these things that we need to use. So we can wait it to install our dependencies. Then we just wait so that we now continue with setting up our cluster. So we are going to wait, and I think it has installed all the necessary dependencies. And as you can see, we we have the bcrypt.js, we have the course.env, JSON web token, mongoose, passport, and then the socket.io. All these dependencies, we are going to use them later. So with that said, now we can create the other parts of this application. I want us to set up this cluster, but we have one more thing that I want us to just do. Just inside here, create a new file and call it .env, because we are going to get some of the environmental variables from directly from our database, and then we are going to store them here. So once we prepare that, now we can go to our cluster and then create our cluster over here. Just click on create, then wait for MongoDB to do its thing. So here, we are going to use, either you can decide to go with this paid version, or you can still decide to use the free version. I'm going to use the free version because I don't want to pay. This is just a demo project. Then I'm going to create and deploy, or I'm just going to I can just decide to go to advanced configuration and see if there's anything that I need to configure here. So I can go to this. Let me use the, do we need to pay for the serverless? I can try and then see if it's requesting us to pay. Yeah, we need to pay for this, so we don't need this. So let's just use the free version of this thing. So let me just use the shared, that is the free version. Then I'm going to click on create this cluster. So you see over here, this is my database that I've created. And this database here, we are going to have some things that we need to configure. For example, we are going to use IP address so that we track our machine and the network of our machine. So we also need to set up our users if we need to do that. But for now, you see these user details, I've said we are going to use some of these things. So let me just copy this password and then just add it here like that. And then I'm also going to copy the username. Maybe we are going to see if we are going to refer it later. Then I'm just going to just randomly add them, and then we are going to configure that later. So then I'm also going to add my current IP address like that. Then anything that I need to set, maybe I can check. Maybe I need to also go to the network access page if I want to see what exactly this entails. You can just go here, and then you can learn through. You can add your IP address accesses. So I can just still decide to explore this here, and then I think it should be able now to create this. I don't know why it's not creating. This one should be able now to create our database, but we can check on the certificate. We need anything? We don't need this for now. We just need setting up this. It should be able now to open this thing. can just go here, then this one should be able to open. Let me just refresh. Let me check if it's okay if I need to create another user. Maybe I don't need to create another user. Maybe yes, I needed to create that user. I needed to create that user, so I think that one should be working, and then I finish to project overview. Then after doing that, I also need to check the connection string. And from the connection string, you see this connection string. I'm also going to copy this connection string. Then I'm going to store it in our env file. Then you're going to go back to later to it so that we set it up. So once I'm done, because I've already copied this, then I'm going to finish, and then this one should be working perfectly now. So that one should be working perfectly. So I can now see if I can add any random data over here. So I can click this and see if we have anything. We don't have any data set. So that means our database, everything should be well, or should be up and running. If you want to add anything, also we can check if we need to add the connection, or we need to click on the connect. Then we set up some few things. Let's see if we need to set any campus, anything here. We don't need to do anything. But for now, in the meantime, maybe if we need to set that up, we can check. But also you can decide to load the sample data. We can load the sample data and see if our database was fully set up, and see if our database was fully set up. This one is just trying to set up a random data for us to use. This one is loading some random data, but we can still wait for it to load that. And in the meantime, as we wait for that to load, now we can actually start the actual business, that is writing our code. So because this is a full stack application that has a front end and has a back end, we are going to create different files over here. Then I'm going to call my first folder, that is the server, where I'm going to store my backend code. Then I'm going also to create my client. I'm also going to create my client page, where I'm going to set up everything to do with the front end and everything. So with that said, now we can start. I want us to start with the backend part. So we prepare and see some magics, some things to do with our code. So with that said, let's go to our server. Then in our server, let's just create a random file. Then we call it server.js to test if our server application is working well. or we test if we have installed Node successfully, or if we can run our application. So with that said, now we can add our code over here, or we can still continue with other parts. But we can test if our application, or if we installed our Node.js application well. The first thing that we need to do, we need to have const express, we need to import, or we need to require express the library that we installed. Then the next thing that we need also to set up, all we need to do is actually maybe we can, what can we do now? Maybe we can set up our port that we are going to explore why we set up our port, and say process dot env in case we had set up our port in our environment or variables, or in case we don't have a port, we can either decide to port our application in port 3000, in port 5000, in port 8000, or we can just decide to use any port of our choice. Now here we are going also to write the server dot listen. We are going to define the server because I can see we have not defined the server. Then here we are going to add the port, and remember this is the port variable that we created over here. So we do that port, then this one should be an arrow function that that we are going to CLG, or we are going to console log our application. And this one should be something like this, just a random um, just a random statement like server listening on port, or server started on this particular port, and that is the port that that is the port that we are going to be using. So with that said, you see this variable, this one is not defined, so that means we need also to create our server. So how do we create or how do we create our server? So our server we are going to create here and call it const server is equal to um, is equal to we are going to make it is equal to what? Is equal to HTTP, in which this HTTP we are going to we are going also to we are going also to import it here on the top. That is create. We are going to create the server, and then like that. But before that, you see this express that we have initialized here. We also need to use that express so that it can spin up our server. To spin up our server with our express, we just need to define an app, and then we call this express, and then we pass this application over here. Then that one should be working perfectly. But as you can see this is not defined the HTTP. So what we need to do, remember we installed these dependencies over here. That is the HTTP. Did you install our HTTP? No, but I think we already have it in our Node.js. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to const HTTP, then I'm going to require the HTTP module that we have, or that has already been installed in our application. Then it's going to change everything just like that. Then we are going to start our application and see if our application is working perfectly before we continue with any other part. So to start our Node.js application, I'm going to make sure that I change directory, that is cd to the server, like that. Then I'm going to install, I'm going to start my my application. How do you start our application? We do npm then we do npm start in case we have any other command. Then you see that that's one not working. This one is for starting React application, but for Node we just need to type Node. Then we start the server. The server, that is the server. Oh, because we want to run that file, we just do Node server.js, and then we see we have a very big error over here. We have some things that have not been handled, so we need to check on that. Anyone who can see where the problem is? So let's check if our code has an error. We have our HTTP that has created our server here. Then we have called our app, and then we have our express that we needed of our express here. Then we have this port, then here, and then we have this variable. Then everything should be working perfectly. I don't know why it's not working. But also maybe we can require the .env. Let's see, const .env is require. We are going to require the .env that we installed, and maybe we can configure our .env file .env .env config, like that. Let's see where where we are going wrong. This one should be working perfectly. Let me see the error we are getting. So let me just clear this. This, I think we can just change the port to port 4000. Maybe I know why it's not working. Yeah, it's not working because we have another application that is already running on port 5000. Is this sample application? You see, this sample application we are trying to demo here is the one that is running on port 5000. That's why this application had failed to start. So with that said, we can see that our application is up and running. But do you know that we can access this application or this port in our application over here, that is port 4000, in our browser like this, and then it says it cannot get because we need to also add some more code, and then we see if we are going to return anything in our browser. Okay, so let's continue and then maybe create or set up our database. But remember, we're also using socket.io that we are going to set it up later. But for now, this is the initial setup of our application. As you can see, we have set up the HTTP because we are going to later use it. Then we set up our port here in case we had set up our port here. Maybe, for example, in case we had set up our port like a port, maybe like port 8000, then we are also going to, once we use that process.env, then it's going to be automatically added over here. But for now, let's just go without it. Then we are going to go back to the .env, and then we are going to see how this .env file works. So the next thing that we need to set up is actually we can start setting up some few files here, just for our safety or just for making our application look clean. We are going to need files or some controllers. We are going to need some controllers in our application or in our server side, and also we are going to need our database models or models. We are also going to need in our server side. We are also going to need utilities. We're also going to need some extra things. Maybe, yeah, we are going to need the routes. You're also going to need the routes, and later for authentication and other things, you are going to need the middlewares. But there are some things, for example, like our MongoDB configuration, we can just go and add it here in our config file, just like that. We are going to require it like that, and then we are done setting up all the necessary folders that we need for our backend. So the next thing that we can set, we can try to set up the configuration. That is the database configuration. We can try to set up that a MongoDB configuration. And this MongoDB configuration will be basically connecting. You see, once we start our application or once we spin our server, then it's going to connect automatically to our MongoDB. Now, this once we connect, now it's able to receive our database or to receive items in our database. So I'm going to leave the server over there. Then I'm just going to go straight to the config. Then I'm going to add the db.js, where we are going to configure our MongoDB. For example, I'm going to configure my server. I'm going to configure my server or my DB over here. So what we need to do here, we are going to require some modules. That is mongoose. Const mongoose is required to is equal to require mongoose like that, because remember the mongoose is what we installed to connect our mongoose. Because we need an environment of variables at some point, we can define the const.env is equal to require the .env. Then also from there now everything can be or should be working perfectly. Now the code that we are going to write over here, we are going to write an arrow function that we are going now to do the actual connection of the MongoDB. That is connect DB, that we are going to make it an asynchronous such that it does our things in a certain order. Then from that, we are going to make it an arrow function that is going to receive some few things. So inside here, remember everything that we are going to write is going to catch all the possible errors. So we can try, we can use the try, that is the try catch. We can open the try catch block. The try catch block that is going to catch all the possible errors, and then we make our application safe and somehow good, such that it can catch or it can catch all the errors. So inside here, we just need to do something simple to connect to our MongoDB. For example, because this is an asynchronous function, we are going to await we are going to await the mongoose that we created over here. Then the mongoose.connect, and then we are going to connect to our database. So inside here, we are going to pass. Something here. That is the connection string for our database. Then over here, we are going to use something or some things. So you see everything that we are going to see here is the connection string that we need to use. And remember, our connection string is this connection string that we also need to add some things, or we need to change some few things in our connection string. So once we open this, once we add our connection string over here, then we are going to now be able to connect to MongoDB. So inside here, we are going to add some few variables that we are going to set. So that is the new URL parser. For example, so we are going to set up our use the new URL parser. You can get all these things in the MongoDB or in the connection documentation. You can get all these things in the documentation. So we are going to define this, and then we are going to use new URL parser like that, and then we are going to make it true. Then also inside here, we are going to use the unified string. For example, like this, use unified topology. We are going to see this. Then also we are going to set that to true. This one is going to enable us connect our MongoDB. So with that said, now we can maybe print. We can now print some a statement here and say something like connected. For example, like MongoDB connected. We can say connected successfully to know if we have successfully connected to our MongoDB once we start our application. Now let's go back to our env file. You see this password that we saved here. This password for our database. Now we need to check. You see this here. We need to change this to the actual password. You see where we have written or where it's stating the password. We need to change that. We need to change that password. Then that's all that we need to set up over here. But again, we can set our MongoDB URI, that is the connection string, and then we call it MongoDB URI or URL. Then you set up into that connection string. You can either try to do it this way, and if it accepts, then we are going to use it that way. Then inside here, now we are going to use the Mongo URI that we just defined over here. That is the Mongo underscore URI, like that. And remember, this Mongo URI is this one. You see this one over here is the one that we just called over here. But remember, we are using the .env or the .environment of variables. So we are going to call this .env, that is the .env config. That is the .config. So it's inside our configuration files. So with that said, then that one should be able to connect into MongoDB. But remember, what if we have any error over here? Then we can do a console.log then here we pass failed to connect, then this one failed to connect, like that. Then also something next that we can do, we can print, you see this error message over here, we can just decide to print the errors, and then inside that error we get the error dot, we get the messages of that error. Then from that, then we can just terminate, the process in case it fails to connect. We can just terminate the process. But remember, this is a function that we are going to use it in our server.js. Because this is a function, we need to export our function like that. That is module.export. Then you export this particular module that you have just created. Then like that, then our server should be now either saying connected to MongoDB or either failed. Maybe you can see what our server says. I can start the server and then see this one if it has connected, and then you can see still we have that it's not saying anything. So what we need to do, let's just go to our server.js, then we connect our MongoDB, or we use that configuration. So what we are going to define, we are going to define connect the DB. Then we are going to require, remember we created our own module, we are going to require, then we are going to require this DB that we just created over here. And where do we get our DB? Our DB is inside a dot config, then slash DB, just like that. And then we have connected to our MongoDB. But as you can see, we have just defined this one here, but we have not used it. So to use it, we can just go here below here, then we call that as a function. Then we save, then we start our server again, then we see if our server is working. As you can see here, it failed to connect, then it exited, and then it returned the error that the Mongo URI is not defined. So what we do for now, we can just do away with this. We can just copy this and then bring it here, and bring it here like that. Then we just decide to use it directly from here. See this one here, but this is not advised. You need to store it in your environment or variables. So we can start our application again and see if our Mongo URL is not is using. This one is not URL, sorry. This one is saying URL, and our variable says is URI. So this one was supposed to be working if I say URI like that. That one should be working perfectly. URI is not defined. Okay, you can just uncomment this. You can just uncomment this and just use it directly over here and see. Failed to connect to MongoDB. Authentication failed. We need to authenticate, and let's see if we have defined everything correctly. That we have our password, then we have everything. I think we have everything configured the way it should be configured. We have our user, we have our cluster, MongoDB. Then this one should be able to connect. It's not connecting because we have not added our application name. So we need to go here and add our application name. And remember, our application name, we are getting it directly from our MongoDB here. So we just need to get the application name, and our application name is this project Y. See this project Y, application name should be added here. You see here. Then that one should be project Y like that. Then we can retry our application and see. Still that one has failed to connect to the MongoDB. Bad authentication. Don't know why it say bad authentication. Maybe I can check app services. I see what's going on. Maybe I've set up the wrong password. I've copied the wrong password. Let me check. So let me just check if I've done everything correctly, because it's saying authentication failed. It's taking its ample time, so let's just give it a second of that. Anyone with any question as we wait for this application to restart? Maybe I can go to advanced settings and check. This one should be project Y, database access. Let me check if I can edit this. Let me just copy this new password, then just change this password to this new password. Then update this user. Let me just cross check some few things so I can retry my application. See, the problem was the password. Yeah, thank you. The problem was the password. I copied the wrong password, as you can see here. MongoDB connected successfully, and then that means we have connected to the correct password for that application. So with that said, we are still progressing. We are in a nice place that we need to be. So I don't know if we should prepare the front end, or we can just prepare the entire backend and then we we later come to the front end. Someone can suggest what you want us to do. Do you want us to prepare the entire backend, or do you want us to mix the two? Or do you want us to just prepare first the front end and then we prepare the backend? Because you can see now we have connected our database successfully. What we just need to do is just preparing the front end part. Anyone can suggest what you want us to do? You can still type on the chat. Do you want us to prepare now the front end, the back end first? I can see back end first. Can see people are just enjoying the back end. The session is being recorded, so don't worry. And so we can just prepare the back end, all the necessary parts that we need to do. I think people are just enjoying what they are seeing, the progress with everything. For anyone who joined late, we have a WhatsApp group, and I think for those who joined early, they can share the WhatsApp group for us to join. You can invite more people into these sessions. That is the WhatsApp group. You can join that WhatsApp group. And actually, you can get more of this content still in my website, progskill.com. You can get more of these courses. You can make sure that you don't miss any question or any session by going to coaching calls and everything. And also, actually, you can submit your code for review. Just log in, go to my profile. Then, after you log in, going to my profile, then you can just upload a code for review, or you can just decide to go to here projects. Then you can upload a code for review. Maybe you are stuck somewhere. You would like us to review your project, or you'd like to me to go through your code and then just add some suggestions, fix some few bugs. You can go to progskill.com, then go to project, and then you just submit your project for review or your code for review. I'm going to share the link as well, and you can actually enjoy this and more sessions just like this. So, because we have successfully connected our database, so we are going to continue with the backend. So, what we need to do next is actually preparing some few things. So let's go back to our application, our working application, and see where we need to start. See this new application, this application that is already running. In this application, let's see where we need to start. Actually, we need to prepare some functionalities like one create can click and create this thing, this document. So we can prepare backend for that without the front end. That's very, very possible. We can prepare that without preparing any front end part. As well, we can prepare such that once you click this, we prepare the route for that. That's something that we can prepare. We can also prepare such that once you are editing, the document is being saved on the backend. Even before you prepare the front end, you can prepare that on the entire backend for that application. So let's do this. Let's prepare this function where now you can just click this, then add the data to the database. Let's just prepare the backend for that. So to prepare that data for backend, we just need to prepare that in our database models. So we go to the models, then we can create a file and then we can call it document. We can call it document.js because this is the function for creating the document, or this is the document model. So inside here, we are using Mongoose, remember. So we need to import this Mongoose that we have over here. Then the next thing that we need to do is creating a database schema for that is going to store our document. So we are going to prepare this schema and then call it document, and then we call it document schema like this. Then inside that, this is a function. Then we are going to call it. We are going to call this um, new mongoose dot schema. Then inside here is where we are going to add our schema like this. So inside here, let's add an object here, and our database will store this object. The first thing that we are going to store, remember, is the title of this document. This is the title that we need to store. So we need to prepare the title. And this title, let's give it a type. Let's give our document or this title to be a type of a string. But this title, you can't just create a document without a title. So we are going to set, and then we are going to tell this document is required, and which one should be true. This document is required. You can't write a document without a title, so that one is required. Another thing that we need to do, or we need to prepare, is the actual content itself. This document, it should be similarly the same as this title. But the document, once you are creating the document, this document is not required. What we need to do, for example, you see this document. The moment we created this document, initially, it was empty. So by default, this one was by default this was just an empty string that was ready to receive anything. But also remember, this document in future, we are going to add the authentication, and this authentication, we are going to create the owner of the document. The owner of the document is the person who created the document. So we are going to add the owner. Remember, we have said we can prepare the whole backend without the front end. And also we can prepare the whole front end without the backend as well. So the document here, the owner here, remember the owner. The owner should be a type of. Then what if we use the mongoose dot schema dot the types, we call it types. Then object ID, you can see we have it here, object ID. Then this object ID, the user is not required. In this case, the user should have a reference in the list of the user. So what's going on here? So we have this mongoose that we have defined here, this module here. Then it's going to do the schema, then set the object ID. Then that one should be the user. But also we need collaborators, which should be stored in the same way as the document, or as the user, as the owner of this document. So that means also collaborators should be stored in the same way. But remember, user, we only have one person who can create one document. But we have a list of people who can contribute into this document. That means here we need just to store an array of collaborators. But inside this array of collaborators, now we can have these different objects or these different users. So with that said, I think we are done. Maybe we set up one more thing, one last thing for preparing this, and this one should be our main or this awesome feature that is storing the version history. Remember this, the document that we created had versions, so we need to store those versions. So to store those versions, what we need to do is actually store an array of versions. But also this array of versions, we are going to store different versions. This one should be full colon like that. So inside here, we are going to store in that version. In that version, we are going to store the content. Remember in our document, in our Google Docs, where is it? This Google Docs. Remember in these versions, we have this list of versions. One can click that version or that version, then they can restore that version. You see that functionality? That means that's why in our version history, we need to store the content of that version or the content that was there. That's why we need to store that content as a string, anything. But also you see in our Mongo, not in our Mongo, but in our Google Docs. This document was last edited when? This time, this particular version. That means also we can store the timestamp of that document. Maybe I want to see a specific date when this document was edited, and this one should be a type or data type of date. Then the default date, and time should be date dot now. Now at this moment we are editing this document is when this timestamp should be running or should be stored. This particular time we are editing our document is that particular time when we want to store that particular date and time. Then generally, because you see, because we already created our document, we also need to store when this document was created, the time when this document was created. So to store that time when particular document was created, you see this. I want to separate this. See this one. Let me save. Separate this like this. So you see this code over here. That one is a single document. So I need to set I need also to set timestamp for the general document or those different timestamps, and then it should store those different timestamps of those versions and everything of these documents. Remember, it's a mod. Remember, this is model that we have created. So the thing that we need to do so that we can use it here in our Node.js in our server here, to use this, we need to export this. So we need to export what? We need to use the mongoose dot export export this model. And which model are we and which model are we exporting here? First, we can just call it a document. Go to the database and create a list of documents. Then we pass the document schema here. This one here is what we just passed over here. And our database is fully prepared to create a document, to edit the versions, to create all those versions, and actually to edit. We have prepared our model. We are done with preparing our model. Maybe we can export that to our server over here and see if we can do anything. So what we need to do is actually import the module here. So that one should be const. We can call it document because it's the one that we used to require. We use sorry to create that document like that. So the same way that we have done for the configuration, that is the config, is the same way that we need to do for the models. That is for the document model. So that one, let's go to the model, then get that model that we have just created like that. Then let's see how we can use that in our application. So to use that in our application, we need to do several things. The first thing that we need to do, actually, we can now use our socket IO, but that we are going to use it later. You can just ignore it. And maybe I think it's a good time that we just create a sample front end of that application. I think it's a good time we create that sample so that we can basically try if we can create our document. I think it's time we do that. But before we do that, remember I said we can prepare the whole backend without um, doing anything, anything, without creating the front end. I mean, so what I'm going to do so that we connect our front end with our database. So first thing that I want to do, I'm going to use the socket IO that we just created or we just installed. Then we pass our server over here. You see this IO, this one here, we pass it over here. And then with that, maybe I don't think if we have installed this socket, so we just need to require it. We still need to require it over here. Where can we require it? I think this is the best place. Const socket IO. Remember this, everything here we have to require it over here. So it requires the socket IO like that. Then this one should not complain at all. So what else do we need to set up? Let me see. We don't need to set up anything else. I think that one should be perfectly working. So what we are going to do is just create a sample front end. For this front end, we just check if it works. So here in my front end, in my client, we can just decide to create index.html. Then here I'm going to create my index.html file like that. Then here I think this HTML, because we already know a lot of HTML, I'm going to copy it. Most of these codes from the HTML, I think. Just going to copy most of these. So with here, I can just say h1 and say hello world, because we have our hello world. So let's try to connect this front end. You see, This is a different thing. That is the front end. We have the back end. So we want to connect now this front end and the back end and see if we can get any output from our browser. So let's do this. Maybe to connect and just try before we continue with the other part. Let's go to our server. We go to our server, and the first thing that we are going to do now, we are going to make use of this express very well that we just added. Because we have our app, let's make sure that we use our app.use like that. We can just leave it blank for now. Then we are going to get back to it. Also we can use another app.use. App.use. Let me do that. The app.use, it should be using the static. That is the express. Use the express. Then go to the static files. Go to the static files. Then one of these static files should be the HTML, the CSS. Those are static files, images, and everything. So we want to connect our backend with the static files, and the static is the HTML over here, or our front end over here. So express.static. Then inside here, we are going to do path.join, path.join. Then I'm going to join a specific directory like this. And then remember, then I'm going to get whatever I'm going to add over here is this client folder here, or this client, or this front end folder here. So remember our front end folder, we can just follow the exact path, and the exact path for this front end, I think, should be, let me see if it's going to predict. No, but in that case I can just get I can just get the wool client. How do you type client? Yeah, like that. So I can just get the wool client just like that, and then that one should be taking us to a specific part. Now I've connected the wool front end. Now the next thing that I can do is basically the other thing that I can do is actually route. I'm going to route to serve. I'm going to write a route to serve my index.html. Index.html. So I'm going to write a route that is going to serve my index.html for the route, or for the root URL. What do I mean? I mean, once we go to this page, you see this one is saying cannot get. Once I load here, now I'm going to see the front end. So I'm going to write that route. So we use app.get, that is the method for get. Then in which path? When I go to the home page and you see this path, this one is the default, or the initial one, that is the path. So this is the home page. We can call it the home page. Is the one that we are saying ./ you don't want to go to a specific page. Then we can say an arrow function that has a request and response. Then here we are going to write this function as this one. So we are going to take the response dot send file. Which file are we sending? We want to send now. We want to send this index.html to the front end. We want to render this to the front end. So we use the path.join, then the directory, and then this one should be now the exact directory of our application. So this one should be having the closing as well. Yeah, no, it should not be complaining. This one is pairing with this, and then this one is pairing with this one. So inside here, I'm going to go to the route for clients. Then I'm going to pass my index.html like that, and then that one should be giving us a certain direction. If our application is well and good, maybe we can try. This one is failing. Maybe we can check our server. If our server is still working, we can see it's working. So we just need to cross check some few things. So we have already written this, so we are good to go up to there. And also the express.static, we have required all our static files. And also maybe let's see if we have something that we are missing. Maybe we need to include the body parser. Maybe we need to include the body parser as well. So I can just use the body parser here. But before we use the body parser, this is how you you require it over here. So you define a body parser. Remember, the body parser is these libraries that we installed here, all those dependencies, sorry, that we installed. Remember, we installed the body parser, and this body parser, you can get them here in your JSON file here. In case we install it, I think that one comes by default. If it fails, then we are going to fix that. If it fails, in case it fails, we are going to fix that. Then after using this body parser, we can just pass it over here in our first application and then call it app.bodyparser. That body parser should be like this. Then it should pass .json. Then that one should be a function. I think that one should not be the problem. Let's see. This one should be working perfectly now. Maybe we can just drop our server. And to avoid all this, every time you are starting your server and running your server again, we can actually install, we can install npm. We can go to npm install something, we call it nodemon. We call it nodemon, or we can call it nodemon, something like that. We don't want our code to have this demon of starting our server every time. We can just install that nodemon. Then after installing that nodemon, it will save us the hassle of starting our server every single time. So we just do nodemon, then index. No, it should be server.js, not index, like that. Then you can see perfectly it's giving us the exact error why our application is failing. So it's failing in the part of that path. Did we define path? Not really. Yeah, perfectly. Remember, we installed this. I think we installed path. I don't know why it's not showing here. So let's just go here and define const path. Then it's going to require path like that. Then that one should be working perfectly. MongoDB connected successfully with no errors. Then there we go. We have connected our front end with our backend. That means we have successfully connected our front end with our awesome backend. Anyone with any question? Because I can see we are running out of time. We only have 2 hours per session per week. And I think you guys, you are enjoying the session. I think you are enjoying the session. If you are learning something, uh, kindly let me know. If you are learning something, kindly let me know that you are learning something or you are enjoying. Yes, thank you, Collins, and thank you, the rest. Thank you, Shira. Thank you, Danson. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Barak. Thank you, everyone. So I think now we have connected the front end. Maybe maybe I can decide because the front end we have already covered everything. Because we have already covered everything, most of the things you already know most of the HTML, so we don't need to repeat. So I can just decide to let me just come here and maybe copy most of this HTML, and then we are going to let me just copy this HTML. We don't need to know most of these things. Don't need to know most of these things. I can just copy these HTML things with my code. I can remove this. Then I will explain some of the things. Yeah. So don't worry if you see me copying. I will explain. We are not going to leave them blank. So I can go to all the way to where? All the way to here. And as you can see, this is just the basic HTML with some Tailwind CSS. This one is just like Bootstrap. For those who have used the Bootstrap, just something similar with these classes that you can just use and create your application. So let me see if this front end works on my side. Yeah, it should be like this, and this one is similar to this. So these are just the basic HTML with the basic CSS. Nothing complex over here. This is just the CSS. So let me explain what's happening in some of these things. You see this div here. See this division here. This section is the one with the add or with this button here. Once we click this button, we want to add something. So this button, we have added an ID that we are going to use JavaScript to get that ID and then do some magic with that ID. That's what I can explain from the HTML. Then we have another empty div here. See this empty div? This empty div is the empty div. You see this place over here, this empty space. See this, all this empty space over here. This empty space is the space. Is actually this space. Is actually this space you can see here. So everything that we are going to write, we are going to dynamically render it here in our browser in that empty div. So basically, that's what we are going is inside here in our empty div. This one here, we are just going to create a script.js that is just going to do some few JavaScript magics. The first magic that is going to do, the first magic that we want to do, I want to do away with this. Okay, should be working now. I want my brush. Yeah, thank you. So, what was I saying? So the thing that we need to do, you see this in this JavaScript code here. We are going to create. We are going to create this editor. You see this editor here. This awesome editor here. You can't just get it anywhere. You can't just get this editor anywhere or any place that you'd like. We are going to we are going to get that editor. So I think for today You can just stop there because we have already covered 2 hours, and maybe we do that or the rest next week. Or we can just take around a maximum of 10 minutes. Maybe we prepare something extra so that we continue next time. So from there, let's see our progress. I can clear all. Perfect. So what we need to do, we can create. Let me see what we can create. Let me see what we can see. I don't think there's anything extra that we can create for today. Maybe we can create. We have already created models. Do we need to create? Um, do we need to create the document routes? Maybe we can create the document routes, but there's no need we create the document routes for now. There is no need we create the document routes for now. Maybe we can explore what's it inside the client JavaScript. We have a lot of code in our JavaScript, so we don't need to explore that today. Maybe we can check that next time. And anyone with any question before we call it a session or we call it a day? Anyone with any question before we call it a day? Someone is asking, was the L awarded for port 5000? No, it was at port. It was at port. Which port? It was at port 5000. It was at port 5000, but unfortunately, you see this different app. This is the live app that I'm using for demo. This one here is the one that is complete. I'm using for demo. Is the one that is using port 5000. That's why I changed this to port 4000. You can change it to any port. You can make it to as 5000, whatever port that you want to make it. I just changed it to 4000 because we had this other application that was running on that port I wanted to use. And I think you guys, the MongoDB installation guide at the recording, the session is being recorded, so I'm going to share exactly to see how I did the configuration. And the workspace for the configuration, you just need to go mongodb.com, create an account, and then that's it. Then you have your databases ready there. It's just configuring and just setting up some few things. The recording is being recorded, Barak, in case you were asking about that. And I have courses that I'm offering. Some are free, some are paid. For the machine learning course that is upcoming, the content is ready, everything is ready. You can just go through that. You can decide to you can just apply for that MongoDB course. You can just check other courses that we have for free, web development, React, all those different courses. You can check them in this website. One thing that I've said from this project or from this website, you can get a list of courses. Very some courses, then you are going to get certificates from all these courses that we have. Once you just go through the content, is self-paced. Everything setting up, for example, for the HTML and the CSS course, we have a portfolio by the end of this course. Once you go through this course, you are going to get a very, very beautiful CSS. Let me see, I'm done 100% with this course. So we have this free portfolio here, this template. You can just decide to go to this portfolio website that you get. You can just download that and make your own portfolio website from this link that I've shared, for example, in this HTML and CSS course. The good thing also, from here you can just go to your profile, then go to projects. Then here you can just upload a project or a code for review. Maybe you are stuck somewhere, you can upload that code and then we review it for you. And then we give you immediate feedback once we review your project or you review our code. Maybe, for example, for the thing that we are doing, maybe you are stuck. You are stuck here. Maybe your application is not running once you are trying to require the static files. You can just go that, explain what your problem is doing, or then you just upload it here. Then we are going to receive it. Once we review it, you are going to receive from your email notification that your project has been reviewed. Then you are going to see anything that has been reviewed, and you are going to see anything inside the message and everything that you can change from your code. Basically, that's it for today. We are going to end the session there. We have actually gone for 1 hour 40 minutes of this project, and that one should be enough for today. So thank you for everyone who joined. You can join the WhatsApp group. You can text anytime for this and other kind of projects. And also, we have machine learning course that is upcoming. It's only 1500 Kenya shilling with support just like this. Very good projects from machine learning from experts who are coming up to be helping you. So feel free to still get the, or you can just join the waiting list. That course will be launched in 9 days. It's already there in our system. Once we launch, we are going to see it. So thank you for joining. Thank you, everyone. Thank you a lot. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your patience. And if you enjoyed, you can show with the thumbs up. If you enjoyed the session, if you learned something, you can show it with the thumbs up. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Grace. Uh, Gay. Thank you, Charles. Thank you, everyone. Basically, thank you a lot. I can't say enough. I see you have your hand raised up. Was it Charles? Okay, the session is over. We can leave. You can be left behind to ask any question in case you have. In case